Our church movement happens to be called Ruach, but of course the Hebrew word Ruach is about breath or wind or spirit, and in particular, God's Spirit. And the first major appearance of the Spirit was not at Pentecost, but in Genesis. Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 and 2, which say, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters." Not long ago I was sitting out on the surf and a helicopter came overhead, and the presence of the helicopter created this huge wind and spray and even created little waves. And that's what I imagine the hovering of the Spirit doing over the waters, is creating all this life and this movement and this energy and this breath to all that God was creating. C.S. Lewis expresses this beautifully in The Magician's Nephew, which I read a little while ago and was reminded of how beautiful the description is. He says of Aslan, "The lion opened his mouth, but no sound came from it. He was breathing out a long, warm breath. It seemed to sway all the beasts as the wind sways a line of trees. Far overhead, from beyond the veil of the blue sky, which hid them, the stars sang again, a pure, cold, difficult music. Then there came a swift flash like fire, but it burnt nobody, either from the sky or from the lion itself, and every drop of blood tingled in the children's bodies, and the deepest, wildest voice they had ever heard was saying, 'Narnia, Narnia, Narnia, awake, love, think, speak, be walking trees, be talking beasts, be divine waters.'" Where the Spirit is, there's life, there's creativity, there's spiritual renewal and refreshment. There's new birth, there's hope, there's healing and restoration. The Spirit is never dormant. The Spirit is always active. Oftentimes, however, His presence goes undetected because we're not tuned in to see where He is working. Sometimes, too, we're blinded by our own prejudices about how we think the Spirit should work. We've already decided in advance what we think it all looks like, and we fail to see His presence at work, often in the everyday detail of life. The psalmist says, "I meditate on all your works and consider what your hands have done." Observing and reflecting on the Spirit's work is actually a discipline that you can cultivate, that you can learn. I encourage you at least once a day, perhaps twice, to stop and think back over the previous 24 hours and ask yourself the question, where have I seen God at work? Where was God's grace and love made known to me? Where did I see evidence of the Spirit at work? Was I receptive at the time, or did the moment slip by without me responding to it? These moments of reflection are an opportunity to thank God for how He has been at work and say, "To God be the glory, great things He has done." It also provides an opportunity to examine ourselves and, in the words of the psalmist, see if there is any offensive way in me and lead me in the way everlasting. And it's also an opportunity to realign ourselves with God's presence and His promptings, that we might, as it says in Galatians, keep in step with the Spirit. It's about developing spiritual eyes and spiritual ears. Why don't you try it now? Close your physical eyes and open your spiritual eyes. Take 3 to 5 minutes to just review and reflect. It may have been an interaction you had with someone. It may have been the morning sunrise, something you saw or observed. Respond as you need to, with thankfulness and confession, and conclude your time by recommitting yourself to your Creator, to your God, committing yourself to the love of the Father, the mind of Christ, and the leading of the Spirit.